Test it. Oh, right, okay. Now it's working. What? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what just happened. But all right. Hi. Sorry, I was trying to do like a actual like. So hello, welcome back. But I mean, whatever. It's just gonna have to be what it is. All right. Slight difficulties. Sorry about that, everybody. Hello, welcome gamers. Welcome back, my excellent, very dedicated, hardworking, competitive jazz players. Once again, welcome back to another one of these tier lists, a true official competitive tier list for the competitive jazz meta. Today, we're going to be going over the 7.0 patch, which was the patch that was codenamed Fusion, specifically because this was the first time that the game of jazz got booted to a new console. And so with this new console came new technology. There were a lot of buffs made to the hardware. I mean, basically like there were new controllers, there was new monitors, right? Like replays got an unbelievable fidelity increase. So now because of that, there was a lot of people who were very enthusiastic about this meta. Well, not the meta, just about this move. They're really enthusiastic about this new patch of the game. But there were also a lot of players who were not so enthusiastic about it because they tried out a little bit. Everyone, at least at some point, tried out a little bit of the new technology from this new console. But some people didn't like it because, again, because of all the different types of connectivity, sometimes there was a lot of input lag, right? Especially with things like MIDI. I mean, there was like atrocious input lag until people found out how to deal with latency. So because of all the input lag, because of the limitations, like you always had to have extra gear for your setup. You couldn't just play just play wireless. Like you had to basically you couldn't play offline. You always had to be connected. So for basically an always connected requirement to be at the top of this meta, once people realize that some players just didn't want to play it anymore. And so they skipped it entirely, going from 6.0 straight to 8.0. They didn't play. A lot of people just straight up did not play the game at all or continued to only play the previous legacy patch until 8.0, right? But then there are some players that really, really, really wanted to embrace this. And so it became a really interesting patch on the new hardware. And what we got out of it was what the players and the devs, they all codenamed Fusion. And how we see that what we're going to explore today is going to be more than just a straightforward tier list, because it's going to be really hard to determine what instruments in such a new landscape. But again, because it's a new console, and because it's a new console, there's going to be new tech. With new tech, of course, comes new sensibilities, new aesthetics, and of course, the spectators, people who actually view the game, right? People who actually watch the game and watch these tournaments, they also want something different than would have been desired in the previous games, because now there's more room for different servers around the world to get into the game to try to play it, and there's a lot more accessibility than ever, which means that some of the instruments that might have been previously just straight up not banned but just unwanted in previous patches were now suddenly viable. So it's hard to say, right? But there are a couple of key things that if we're talking about looking at just pure, because you know how we do it, we keep it objective on these tier lists. Every single tier list, we keep it objective. We have to make some type of observable metric that all of these instruments can be judged by, right? In a fair sense. So we will be talking about those. But before we talk about all of those, let me give you a quick introduction to myself. For those of you who don't know, my name is Patrick Bartley, and I am a competitive jazz saxophonist. I have 15 years of competitive jazz experience as of the making of this video, and I've played in at least 5 different servers. 5 different major servers around the world. So we're talking about the North American server, the European server, the North African server, the Asian server. So I guess that's only 4. Like so basically like only 4 major servers, and then of course regions within those servers as well. So I have quite a bit of. I mean, I really want to go to the South American server at some point. But actually, no. I guess if you consider the Central American server to be its own thing, then yes, I have some experience in the Central American server as well. But oh yeah, we have to do some adjustments to this tier list. I forgot, because I just kind of every time I reset it, it kind of loads up. So while I'm talking, I'll kind of make some adjustments to this. So just so we're cool about that. But do that. Oh, let's see that. Is there really a didn't exist yet tier for any of these instruments? I don't know if there is. I mean, kind of well, we can't really say that anymore. Because, yeah. By this point, almost everything was invented. So, and even then, fusion is still in the modern lexicon of playing. So it's going to be some of the things we're going to talk about later. But anyway, just to kind of put a bookend to my introduction, because of that experience that I have in the competitive jazz scene, I'm going to use my experience today to hopefully give as much of an objective look on what I believe to be the most viable by sheer win rate and by also potential in this meta, the absolute best instruments and where they stand in the patch 7.0 meta. So if we talk a little bit about the 7.0 meta, let's quickly give you all a refresh, and I made a little cleanup to this too, on the patch notes history. So if you want a full breakdown of this, by the time you see this video, the patch breakdown might already be available, uploaded already. Or if it's not, you can find me talk about all the patches in the very first tier list that I made, which is the 8.5 tier list. You can see that. But I did a couple of I did a bit of cleanup here, so I'm just gonna put this here. I'm not gonna go too in depth into the patch notes today. I'm gonna focus a little bit more on the tier list just to save some time. But I will at least give kind of a quick summary into what we saw as the transition from the 6.0 meta into the 7.0 meta, and why there is always there's either some form of overlap or some form of kind of dissonance, incongruence, right? Some conflicts. So let's give a little bit of an overview of 7.0. So what is 7.0? What do we denotate as fusion? So here's where things get a little complicated. In terms of what 7.0 is, because fusion can mean a lot of different things. I mean, think about it. Jazz itself is fusion, right? If we think about what like the music of jazz is, the three most kind of basic components of jazz would be ragtime, classical music, and the blues. There's a lot in there, right? Because even within the quote-unquote Western classical music tradition, the American offshoot of that was the march tradition, right? The American march tradition. Within ragtime, there was also, I mean, you know, if you wanted to be a ragtime pianist, you probably had to have some type of classical proficiency. And of course, the blues was played on all instruments and also sang. And so there's a lot of cross-pollinating in there. It's like the real big, like, it was like the first real big fusion of music in the Western hemisphere. So if you really think about it, fusion can mean a lot of different things. But in this case, we're denotating fusion as being the next step, right? This is the first time a new console was introduced to play the game on. So with that you can call it Jazz 2.0. It's not really like the patch, but like it's like Jazz 2. Fusion came out and became Jazz 2. Like you can think about it that way if you want. And so some people don't like playing Jazz 2 because the rules seem too loose. But the thing that really some people don't like Jazz 2 because it's too loose, or people really like Jazz 2 because it gives them more creative freedom. Thank you for the 2 euros, Vasquez. But at least try to go in depth. No, I don't want to go in depth into every single patch note every stream because it's not efficient. So, but there will be hopefully soon there will be a video talking about all these because I want to do a meta breakdown. But regardless, to not digress, the thing that made the biggest difference in the fusion era, the reason why we usher in the fusion era as a separate era of jazz is, why it's kind of almost hard to call it jazz. It's kind of its new thing. But regardless of that's why we just call it fusion. But within this thing, the reason that it's a different thing is because of the technology. The technology, it's new hardware, not just new firmware and software. It is absolute new hardware for the genre, which means that if bebop increased the threshold by which notes needed to be played and the tech skill you need to have to play it, this patch 7.0 increased the amount of sound space that you had to take up as a requirement to be held up in the meta. So notes were definitely important in this meta. Like shredding was definitely a thing. But what became more important in the Fusion era was sound and sonic space, texture. This became the most important thing in the Fusion era, because the thing about what we call fusion, is that this was the time that musicians from all types of legacy patches, you had people that were coming from legacy patches from as far back as 5.0 coming into this, or you had completely new players who didn't play a lick of anything until 7.0, and everyone was valid. This was the first time in jazz history that this was a thing, because if previously in 4.0, if you were playing 3.0, you had to get out of here. And then even as the new patches came out, 4.0 players wouldn't let 6.0 players join the 4.0 side, because they would think that they're playing too much stuff that doesn't make any sense. In 7.0, the console said that the new developers were saying, yeah, in 7.0 we try to make this as a patch for everybody to have a chance to play. So of course, the more players that you let into the game, the more of a risk of saturation, like oversaturation there is to the player base and the play styles, which makes it harder to really tell where the skills are. But there's still ways to tell, because the cool thing about the other cool thing about 7.0 is that because all of the other play styles are welcome, that means that all of the previous skills that you gain from playing the previous metas also give you an edge and give you a boost in this meta. So there was a big difference between players who started in 7.0 without any type of formal training before that, and then players who came from at least 6.0 that came into playing 7.0. So if you played on the previous consoles, you had the previous tech, you had the previous meta knowledge, you were able to come in and have an advantage over other players in 7.0. The other thing about 7.0 to understand is that 7.0 is a meta that was not as competitive as the previous metas. This was a very, interestingly enough, 7.0 players made their own system. They made their own, they made a lot of different community patches, which we can also talk about too. We're going to talk about some of them as we go through the tier list, but this patch ushered in a similar effect that 3.0 did, but in the other direction. So there was a lot of opportunity for players to carve out their own casual PRs. Like this was like when PR was at its highest, right? So people were doing a lot more proto content creation, not really like they're doing now, because they didn't have the technology to do so independently. But this was the time where your aesthetic started to matter just as much as your playability. So things get real spicy, as they say in this meta. Things get really crazy in this meta. So today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk more about like an actual discussion of this meta after I rank the instruments with you all here, because even though I have a lot of experience playing in all the metas, I played in every meta here. But with that being said, I'm not exactly the foremost expert in 7.0. So what I would love to do is start a discussion with a lot of more experienced players in 7.0 in the future about this. So what I'm going to do is right now, I'm only going to look at this from as objective as a standpoint as I can, meaning that we're going to look at which instruments down here have the highest win rates, the most usage, and also the most versatility, the most potential in the meta, which again is going to be hard to do because Fuge 7.0 is still, think as funny as it may seem, I'm sure are there really any Smash 4 players still to this day? Are there any Smash 4 players? I mean, there's a lot of Smash Ultimate players still, and the way they play the game is different than, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of some games like that's a good parallel to like what this is. It's hard to find what a good parallel to Jazz would be for this. Maybe somebody in the comments can help me understand. Because you know what I'm trying to say, right? Where like there are players that exclusively play 7.0. And they kind of 7.0 can like dabble in other things. You say Tekken 7? Yeah, you could say Tekken 7. Maybe. You could say Tekken 7. Street Fighter 5 is a good example too. Man, how many Tekken Tag 2 players are there still? Really? They'd be crazy. But Rivals 2 is a new Rivals, though. Marvel 3 might be a really good example. UMVC 3, because MVC 2 is kind of more like Bebop. Everybody thinks that Marvel 2 is classic Marvel. Mario Kart Wii! Let's use that one. Mario Kart Wii is the absolute best example of this. Without a doubt. Mario Kart Wii is the one. Because Mario Kart Wii, like, there's such a dedicated Mario Kart Wii fan base, and people are still playing that joint. Like, there are people that, like, swear up and down by that. 7.0 is basically what this is. Like, I think that's kind of the best example. I mean, bro, Funky Kong and Mario Kart Wii is guitar infusion. Just pick it, just win every game. But anyway, I digress. It's gonna be hard to judge this, but we're gonna go. I guess let's start right away. This is gonna be a little faster than the other tier list, but hopefully that'll be good for people. Let's start right away with. Let's talk about what you need in this meta in order to be at the top. So in order to be at the top, I talked about sonic space. So sonic space can be talked about in a lot of different ways. It can be the amount of notes you play in a space, but more often it's about the types of effects that you put on the instrument. The type of effects, the type of is it electric versus acoustic? Is it an electric blend with an acoustic stuff? Is it electric acoustic blend? Are there different instruments that are not typically used in jazz? Like, this is the first time that we saw since 3.0 that we saw a departure into a non-standard instrumentation. Because, or 2.0 really. 2.0 was a big free for all for jazz. Like 1.0 and 2.0. 2.0 you started to see some dominant instruments in the meta, and just like you see dominant instruments here. But the biggest difference is that between 1.0 and 2.0, first of all, is that it was a complete free for all in 1.0. Whereas in 2.0 you had those dominant instruments with some sprinkle of the other instruments in there. 7.0, we have dominant instruments, but now every single instrument is viable. Not just something that's not just things that are sprinkled in there. So that's what makes this kind of hard to judge. But the point is, could you deliver sound? And also, more importantly, could you keep up with the new technology that was coming up? The new amplification, the new high fidelity replay technology. Could you keep up with the instruments on stage, right? So the instruments that are going to be at the top, spoiler alert, the instruments that are going to be at the top are instruments that can cut and deliver the most diverse and huge array of sounds as possible. So right away, let's talk about, I'm going to do something a little different than I do in the other tier list. Let's talk about some instruments. Like, we're going to go back and forth between maybe some S tier instruments and instruments that are lower than them and why things have changed. And let's go in reverse order first and talk about piano. So piano is an interesting instrument. Before in the other two tier lists, if we're watching this in order from 8.5 to 4.0, and in terms of order of how they came out, if you're watching these in chronological order of when they came out, you may notice that piano has previously an S tier above basically everything else. Which is very interesting, right? It's still a great instrument. People still like to play it. However, this meta became more about efficiency and speed than ever before. So let's talk about piano for a second. What are the advantages of piano and what made it an S tier instrument in the previous metas before 7.0? So piano, of course, can deliver the best support in the entire game. It gives you buffs, it gives you buffs to your team, debuffs to the opponent, which is the audience. It can cover fire for your support whenever the supports have to go back to spawn, right? Meaning it can solo when it needs to. It can also cover for your backline if released because it has a really large area of effect and range differential. So with the low end, it does a lot. And it can also be rhythmic and offer some DPS. It's very niche. It's very niche, but it has at least it has a low amount of DPS that's at least more than any other frontline. So this instrument was OP up until this era. However, in this era, because of the new hardware and because of the new sonic requirements, because of the new power, right? It's power creep. Because of the new power creep that all these new instruments that are coming out, it's the new DLC. The new technology DLC that came out as a part of this game's package basically meant that if you wanted to have a piano, you needed to somehow justify carrying all this or having a venue provide this. I mean, are you serious? To provide setups for tournaments? To have a piano versus getting a keyboard? Like, let's just right away, let's just put this here, piano A tier, because it still is. It's still, it can't go any lower than A tier. It's still a great instrument. Keyboard is S tier. That's obvious, because now in this meta, because versatility and functionality is more important than aesthetic, this instrument provides everything that this can if you don't care about the specific piano sound. So at the time, in terms of the heyday of this meta's first patch drop, right? The beta was like the end of the 60s. The beta was in the 60s, but by 1970, when the actual true release of the patch, when the true release of the patch came out, during that time period, piano sounds were terrible, right? That's why this is like a conditional pick. It can't go any lower than A, because this is still a pick where, like, if you really wanted piano, most people, if you were a keyboard synthesizer main, you often put the synthesizer sometimes on top of the piano. Some people still do that to this day. There are piano mains who double on synthesizer mains who double on piano. But in this meta, this instrument just has so many more edges over the piano. The fact that it can provide that support, but it not only can it provide the support, but it doesn't need extra miking. You don't need legacy support for this. You can just do straight, if you bring you got to realize that a lot of these venues, like venues that hosted tournaments, big tournaments, not just ranked matches, but like big tournaments, a lot of times they didn't have consoles that were backwards compatible. You got your PS3, right? The backwards compatible version. And then you got the non-backwards compatible version of the PS3. So, if you were showing up to the tournament, you wanted to play you wanted to play a freaking, you play Gran Turismo 2. It's like, well, if your PS3 is not backwards compatible, you can't, most of them could play Gran Turismo 2. If you want to play a PS2 game, Gran Turismo 4, well, you needed to bring your own setup because they weren't going to have theirs. The venue that you're coming to has all got straight up modern PS3s that are not backwards compatible. Or they might have PS4s, PS5s. None of them are always backwards compatible, any of the old discs. But you had to content with emulating the old software on the new hardware. So that's like, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same experience. It's not going to be the same controllers. But it's enough for people to get by. People by this time, especially if you grew up with 7.0, like I say you were born in the 1950s, you didn't grow up playing 4.0 probably. You probably went straight up into 7.0 by the time you were in your teenage years or 20s. So you probably didn't have an experience of needing to value the sound of an acoustic piano. You probably just like, yeah, piano's piano. It's cool. The piano's fine, right? Like, as long as it sounds like the piano, it's fine. That's how people are with emulated games. You don't need the exact CRT melee. Most people might be content with just playing Slippy. Just playing with an emulator and playing Melee on there. Just because they want to get the game in their hands. They just want to play the game. Some people just want the piano sound. Just want the sound of it. Doesn't have to be an actual Steinway with the whatever. Not everybody can even, I was going to say a 4, but not everybody can even find a CRT. And then lugging that big thing around, it's a lot of work, and venues just weren't putting in the time, especially when they didn't want to put in the time and the effort for that. So it's like, if you go to any type of ranked lobby or any tournament, most of the time, hey, let's say I want to host a tournament in my area. I want to host a 7.0 tournament in my area. Well, the more that this meta became popular, people started to realize that, hey, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort and, a lot of money that we don't have to try to bring in this legacy instrument to our venue. Right? We want to have as many players as possible in the scene. We want to have as many players possible to doing that. So it's it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. So for that reason, the keyboard became just a much more popular instrument. And so when I say keyboard, I know some people are saying do Rhodes separate, but I'm not doing Rhodes separate specifically because these types of keyboards are almost I know that a lot of people, everybody is gonna look at me weird because oh man, you're disrespecting the specifics of each instrument. It's no, there's piano is objectively more specific than Rhodes or Whirly. And instruments like clav, eventually, again, all these instruments became emulatable on one console. These instruments became legacy consoles. You got to understand that. So the keyboard, and the other thing that you have to keep in mind with Whirly, with like a Wurlitzer, with the Rhodes, with the, oh, you know what I got to put? I forgot to put in here. Thank you for, well, you didn't remind me, but I need to do this. Let's see. I need to just do like a synth, like, we need to have like one of these, like a picture of one of these. This is going to be very important. But while I'm remembering to do this, because this is a separate tier. This is a separate tier, a separate category from this. But when I'm talking about specifically the keyboard, we're talking about instruments that like have built-in. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Analog synth versus digital synth. These are digital keyboards. I'm talking about the digital keyboard, which became basically commonplace everywhere, like in the 80s. Right? Since the release of the DX7, it's basically like no excuse anymore. Like every keyboard company realized, oh yeah, we can emulate the sound of any instrument on one instrument. So it's basically like one of the, and not only that, it could also emulate the bass. It could also emulate the drums if you really needed to. It's like it's too overpowered, right? That's the thing. There's too many instruments became viable in this meta. I'm almost tempted to put piano in B, almost, but I have to put it in A just because of like this. People, there are still musicians and players. There's still players that were still using the piano. Joe Zawano, a Legacy 5.0 player, was still using this, right? Like still, like on like almost all of his concerts. So, and to be in one of the top 5 fusion bands that actually established a genre, using this instrument, yeah, that's enough of a substantial tournament win to justify it. Chick Corea, another leader, returning forever, another fusion leader. So many of the top bands still continue to use piano, so you cannot put piano any lower than A. I can't do it. So, but anyway, the point is, this instrument may not have had authenticity. It may not be able to replicate authentic sounds, but it could at least plug in, be electric, and be loud, be amplified, and keep up and cut through loud instruments like the drums, right? Which are also more S-tier instruments, right? Just like other S-tier instruments like the drums. I don't know what order these are in yet, but I'm tempted to put the keyboard here. In this order. I'll talk about the drums in a second. But with other S-tier instruments like drums, keyboard can keep up. Piano could not acoustically keep up with the new soundscape because drums are playing louder. Because they were all the drum technology was changing. Different types of drum head and drum attachment DLCs were coming out. Yeah, Chikorita mentioned. Yeah, I don't have a Chikorita on my table, but yes, Chikorita mentioned. What's up, Carlos? And other thing too to keep in mind about the Wurlitzer, Rhodes, all those other types of very specific, basically like prototype keyboard electric instruments, that also have a place in the meta. They all could also plug in and play loud, but the difference is that all those instruments could only do one thing, right? They could only do one thing. You know, matter of fact, like. Maybe I should put them on here, but they're not gonna be S tier though. They're gonna be above piano. Maybe they could be S tier. The thing is, we can get so carried away putting all these different keyboards up here. We can get so carried away that the list is just gonna be too big. So I think for all intents and purposes, we're just gonna let this represent all other keyboards, because even if you choose to just play a Rhodes, even if you just choose to play a Wurlitzer, they all serve a very specific function and purpose. And a keyboard player might very well, in this time period, have like 7 different individual keyboards plus a synthesizer on stage with them. So, yeah. You said fake piano sounds are an aesthetic? Yeah, but, which is true, that the keyboard can do. The keyboard can do that. The piano, guys. A piano cannot play a fake piano sound. A piano can only play a real piano sound. Terrible. Clapped. Instruments clapped, dude. All right, let's save this. Then we're going to find another. Let's do like SPD. Because this is important too. Gotta do a different image. No, don't save links. Here we go. While we're on this, guys, are there any other staple fusion instruments that I'm missing right now before we continue? You meant to say modular synth? I mean, yeah, this is a modular. It's an analog modular synth. Fretless? I don't know. I'm not gonna make fretless a separate instrument from electric bass in general. I'm just not gonna do that. I don't think that's yeah. So here's the interesting thing about Just Give Up. This tier is very interesting for this meta. You know, even though it's not a drum machine, let's treat the SPD as the role of the drum machine. Because basically it's like the idea is synthesized drums. Right? That's the idea, right? You can also program the SPD to do things automatically too. So you can also use the SPD in tandem with a drum machine as well. So I don't know. But Just Give Up tier is interesting because I can't really say that in the fusion meta. Like I can't really say that. Maybe this will be the first meta where it's not used. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of hard to say, but it might be a lot easier to kind of just like go down the line, I guess. So, all right, accordion in this meta again. So if we're talking about wins, right? We're talking about sheer wins and in the meta. Do we know of any notable fusion accordion players? Like the instrument just like doesn't have a real history of didgeridoo's only, but even didgeridoo might have a place. Like Weather Report might have pulled that out if they had it. Is 7.0 less competitive? Yeah, 7.0 is a very it's not that it's less competitive, it's just that it's casual friendly. It's still very competitive though. Weird Al. Wow. The thing is like if we're pulling some type of aesthetic like element into this, it does have to be considered because that's considered in terms of like the wins of the instrument. But if we're talking about the technicality, I mean, it can perform in this meta. There are accordions now that can plug in through 1/4 inch. In the European server, there are a lot of really crazy accordion players that can play and shred. I mean, I'll give it a solid B tier. I don't think accordion can really ever go above B tier unless it's like a Manouche, like Gypsy Jazz tier list or something. But this, I feel like it's just B tier, right? Like, again, if you really want an accordion, just get a keyboard that can synthesize it. In this meta, with the setups that we have, just get a keyboard. You know? Interesting. Okay, let's talk about something easy. No, I'll save that. Let's talk about something fun. Violin. Okay, so now, guys, this is a really interesting thing now. Guys, so remember, fusion meta is about sound. Aesthetic is a really big part of it. Really big part of it. But also, we're talking about Flamenco's making a good point, but no, I'm actually counting them together because of both of their abilities to be amplified with like a pickup or something. So this instrument, this is the one patch where this joint got a big upset over a lot of instrument. This is the first instrument we're seeing that's had a very significant jump from B tier to A tier. It's either behind. I'd say it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard. It's like either above piano. It's actually kind of up to debate whether it should be above or below piano. But this instrument is insane in this meta because of Listen, DLC, everybody knows, everybody who plays competitive games understands that DLC, it's always a DLC meta. And there's one specific DLC that got invented during this time that changed everything. The Viper. This joint right here. This thing right here. Purely electric violin. So now you have the same power and the same what's the word? Versatility. Thank you. You have the same versatility as a guitar. You can plug into the same pedals. You don't have to worry about air. You can just straight up go. That was a really big thing. It was a really big deal. I mean, and the thing is, even the acoustic violin can still go through pedals, right? There's like not a lot in the way, standing in the way of the violin being an instrument that's viable in this meta. The only difference is that, there are just more recorded wins on the guitar. Now, this instrument was being pushed by incredible. Somebody said Zbigniew. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Zbigniew is incredible. Jean-Luc Ponty. We can count Regina Carter. Who else can we count? Modern players like my friend Ben Sutton. Someone said Lindsey Sterling. This is more acoustic, but Turtle Island String Quartet kind of plays both traditional jazz and fusion sometimes. Like this was the meta that brought the violin up. Like it's almost a contender for being an S tier instrument. Zach Brock, yeah, bro. Eli Bishop nowadays. This instrument has come up a long way, man. It's like just the only difference, the only thing that's holding it back is just it's not readily pluggable, right? Like into a lot of the more traditional, faster, like purely synthesized aesthetic comps that people like to run sometimes. But that's not, honestly, if I were to be completely honest, that's of no fault of the instrument itself. That's sheerly on the players, right? There just aren't enough players of the instrument in this genre. That's it. But because of the few players that have pushed this instrument in competitive have made this thing jump so far. So this is basically, remember guys, anything that's an A tier and above are instruments that are absolutely viable to play. They just either get outclassed or are not common enough. That's basically it. So this is a completely viable instrument in this format because of incredible bands like the Mahavishnu Orchestra in the legacy time, right? In the actual era of the legacy period. You had bands like Mahavishnu Orchestra. You had other, Jean-Luc Ponty making, John Blake Jr., that's another one. John Blake, the father of Jonathan Blake. Guys, the father of Jonathan Blake, the incredible modern jazz drummer, right? Who's like one of the premier top tier 8.0 players. His father was a jazz violinist. So we're talking about an actual, like, small but extremely dedicated, high caliber group of musicians who deserve a big spotlight, and people should actually go check out. I think people should check out more jazz violin in general, but also fusion violin is really cool, especially when you put it through effects. It's a serious instrument, so it definitely deserves a spot up here, man. So definitely check it out. Definitely check it out. It deserves a spot up here. Congratulations to all the violin mains. This is your meta. If you want to be a competitive player in any meta, like as a violinist, 7.0 is your meta. This is the one for you. Trombone. Ooh. Guys, trombone. We don't really know of all of the instruments, guys, I think this is the one meta where tuba has slightly more application in this meta than trombone. We've seen in 7.0 some notable tuba players like Bob Stewart. Single-handedly carrying the instrument on his back. Like carrying the instrument through the ranks. It's like, who are the legacy 7.0 trombone players? Dude, as soon as shred meta became it, right? Like basically, you know, it's Julian Priester. Yeah, but is that 7.0? Are there somebody send me some 7.0 Julian Priester? But trombone's hard. It's hard to. I mean, like in terms of sheer wins, but based off potential, right? Based off potential alone, trombone's gonna go in B tier, right? Because it's still a brass instrument. It still has the potential to do. You know what? Robin Eubanks. That's right. How could I forget? Robin Eubanks single-handedly carrying this instrument into bottom of A tier. You're right. You're absolutely right. And you're right. I forgot about that Julian Priester. I forgot about that one too with Herbie Mondishi. Yeah, but Robin Eubanks and Fred Wesley too. Yeah, I mean this is. Yeah, I avoided a lot of hate from the trombone players just now. Thank you for reminding me. See, my brain, I was so prepared to do 2.0 today that I wasn't thinking of what was going on 7 because I don't deal with 7.0 that much anymore. So, because there's so much overlap of 7.0 into 8.0 anymore. So like, but I can't put trombone higher than violin, guys. I can't. Like, there's way more notable recorded wins with the violin in this meta than there are in trombone. So, and it's also like an instrument that fits the aesthetics of a lot of comps. So, but trombone has a place. I mean, in terms of like in terms of not legacy players from the time period, but like people who want to play 7.0 today, right? Like legacy enjoyers, like instrument has a spot up here. Barry sax. So, yeah, I mean, it's going up into A. It's going above violin just by sheer potential. I mean, if we look at Tower Power and the Mingus Big Band, I mean, Mingus Big Band is kind of not really 7.0. It's kind of more 6.0. But Ronnie Cuber and the Barry player from Tower Power, I mean, they kind of like they're keeping this instrument alive in this meta. And then you got like, I don't know if you would consider Leo to be like a player. I don't know if he's like a competitive player. I don't know if he consider. He probably just like, you know, does his own thing. He just does exhibition matches. But if you were to be a competitive player, yeah, he raises that instrument up, right? Like, so it's interesting. Let's talk about something even more interesting, guys. Really early, alto. You know what? Let's save alto. Let's save alto in this meta. Clarinet. Yeah, it just B tier, I guess, underneath accordion. It's like an instrument that like you can play. You can do it. Like B tier is like instruments that you can technically play, but you would have a much better time playing the instruments above. Clarinet just like it's the biggest nerf in history, right? Like in this new console, clarinet got nerfed. The sound just doesn't cut enough. The instrument is too clunky to play those types of guitar lines, like without like, you know, with the same type of smoothness and clarity that a saxophone can do. Yeah, it just doesn't cut. It's hard. So we're gonna put that there. But bass clarinet gets a slight edge over clarinet. Basically, specifically because of players like Benny Maupin and Bob Mincer. Those are two of the highest. I guess, like, would you consider Chris Potter sometimes a 7.0 player? I don't know. It depends. But basically, there are a lot of notable bass clarinet wins that the instrument has actually a place. This is the first time. This is a win. This is another upset. This is the first time that a bass clarinet in our meta has gotten an upset over clarinet. That's not true. That's not true. It had in other patches. Never mind. But this is the first time that clarinet has gotten demoted. Clarinet's gotten like demoted. So clarinet is down in B tier, but bass clarinet is still above clarinet. That's big. It's really big. Percussion. Should I save percussion? Now let's talk about this. I kind of want to save percussion. I might have a contender for Just Give Up. Possibly. I might have a contender. Should I? Yeah, this is rough. It's kind of hard to say. Um, I'm tempted to put timpani down here and quads, but it's hard to say. But yeah, if this is a competitive fusion, then yeah, like the role of these instruments can be taken up by this and even this if you really needed to. That's the problem. The problem is that keyboard can just, you know what? Yeah, just give. You know what? We're gonna use this. We're gonna use this. We're gonna use this actually really well because the problem is that the keyboard in the synthesizer, right? Let's actually put this. Let's put the analog synth. Analog synth, spoiler alert, is not above the keyboard. The modular synth is not above the keyboard for a couple of different reasons. But we're gonna put it in S tier nevertheless because this instrument was like a defining sound. But this instrument it's just too overpowered. It can do basically everything that all the other instruments can do. So if you really want a synthesized, I don't know, timpani or quad tom setup, you can just, have a drummer play toms or synthesize timpani with the keyboard. You can do that. Yeah. Crash cymbal is just give up. It's just give up. Like there's no reason. Percussion ensemble, like multiple percussion. Let's talk, you know what? Forget it. Let's talk about percussion and why percussion has changed this meta. For the first time, this is really huge. For the first time ever, and this is because of the Latin American server expansion. Percussion, like congas, are S tier, my friend. Absolutely S tier. Matter of fact, they're above bongo and congas. They're above. They're absolutely above the modular synths. This is the first time where these instruments basically are irreplaceable. These are percussion instruments. We're gonna put this in A tier, right? We're gonna put like percussion ensemble because there's so much auxiliary percussion that can be emulated by the by keyboards. And also, there's so many auxiliary percussion that can just be played by people who play these instruments. But it's very rare that if you're like a percussion player, like just an auxiliary percussion player, that you have the actual chops to be a conga player. It's usually conga players that have the chops to play conga also play other percussion, not the other way around. It's not the other way around. So mad respect to percussion players, man, because this is one meta that was defined by fusing different elements together that gave the patch and gave the meta its name, fusion. So a lot of people like to look at what does fusion mean? They say jazz and rock. Well, that's kind of a one-way. It's a little weird. Like part of me scratches my head being like, I don't mean to get all political, but it's like it's a little one-sided, a little discriminatory, kind of like ignorant, hopefully not racist. You know what I'm saying? Because like when I think of fusion, I think of fusion. And one of the first really prominent fusion bands that really changed the world after Miles was Weather Report. And Weather Report changed everything. Weather Report gave us the single greatest 7.0 bassless of all time, Jaco Pastorius. So, I mean, and that band was not only known for Jaco, but of course, even before and after Jaco, we're talking about percussionists. Bro, Ayrton? Bro, you can't really beat Ayrton. I mean, and also like even instruments like tabla, which are not even on the list, but we should put tabla on the list. It'd be amazing. But because let's talk about Indian music as well, right? Basically percussion from all around the world. So this is the first like kind of global expansion of the meta. So if you have percussion, you were augmenting. This is the first time where like instead of the percussion just adding as like an option, like situationally, they became almost a requirement if you wanted to have a buff against the opponent. Percussion is broken. The difference between a band that has percussion versus does not have percussion in 7.0, the band with percussion just wins automatically by default. If you have percussion, that's what you win. That's it. It's the best. It's the absolute best support DPS in the game. Percussion got gigantic damage buffs in this patch. Kind of too much. A little too much. A little too much, dude. Bass trombone we'll put down here. Again. But yeah, percussion mains rise up. You guys, it's your time. It's your time, basically. I'm putting, again, a lot of the specific auxiliary percussion stuff, like cowbell, like clave, like cuica, we're putting that here. They're all lumped up here because most of the time, unless the bands had the money to hire like a dedicated one of those players, then like, you know, conga or bongo players would just like play them. So what's up, Mina? Carnatic rock. Yeah. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about Indian music for a second. Let's talk about it. We have the sitar. So I want to let's actually go check out a couple of like let's check out a couple of tier lists that we had before, because this will be really fun to look at. Let me pull them up. Okay, so previously, right? Previously, this is what we were looking at. So previously in this is 8.5 tier list. Sitar was like right here, bottom of C tier, right? Same thing in the bebop tier list, C tier. Because the instrument is technically chromatic, it always had potential, but it was never really there, right? Now, for the first time, I told y'all this is spicy. 7.0 was a spicy tier list, guys. Because of the legendary Ravi Shankar. Where's my sitar? This instrument, but not just because of Ravi Shankar, but Ravi Shankar was like the face of this instrument, who inspired so many different people to play. He basically put this instrument on the map, right, in this meta. But because of him and other notable sitar players, this instrument gets a spot in the A tier, above the trombone. You cannot beat the sitar in this meta. What's up, Joa? This instrument single-handedly introduced the entire world to all types of Indian music and got people curious about it. John Coltrane may have Train may have experimented a bit with the culture, with the traditions, and with the religion. However, it was this patch that allowed it to come alive because the meta changed because of the new hardware and the new consoles, the new fidelity. And because of no backwards compatibility, a lot of older players who might have been super goated and maybe also like, dogmatic about their presentation about tradition, they didn't really have a place in this meta to dominate it. So you had to come in strong with the new meta only. And this new meta paved the way for players like Ravi Shankar to rise the instrument to the top. Unbelievable. Yes, Sean Lane also plays some sitar. There were a lot of guitar players that were just like, hold on, what the heck is this instrument? Let's check it out. Now, unfortunately, because sitar does get, spoiler alert, sitar does get outclassed by the guitar in terms of sheer wins in the meta. Just by sheer win rate. And also versatility, right? Because the sitar is a very particular instrument, right? And it sounds best when it is in its natural habitat, natural form. I don't really know. I mean, I'm probably just ignorant to this. I don't know of any like electric sitars that are like not acoustic at all. I just don't know. Like the way the instrument resonates, I'm not sure how that would work. But I'm sure there are. I'm just ignorant to it. Like I'm open to the fact that I just don't know it. So I'm happy to be educated about that. But the point is, this instrument it has wins, bro. You see, I think Bone is B tier. Listen, man. Robin Eubanks is too OP in this meta. Robin Eubanks, Fred Wesley. I think Ron Westray even might have. I mean, Elliot Mason also plays in 7.0 sometimes, dude. It's hard, dude. Absolutely same. The reason why it's remember, by sheer win rate, this instrument is a lot more accessible than sitar. Sitar is above trombone because of win rate. But in terms of accessibility, trombone it's a lot easier to get your hands on a trombone, to get educated on a trombone, to play it right, and should at least get to a point of being able to have the potential to have more wins. In the meta, there's a lot more comps that can accommodate this. If you want to do large ensembles, trombone has wins as a support. The thing is, in numbers, maybe one trombone might not have enough versatility, but in numbers, the instrument goes from a kind of mid-tier support to a top tier. Sorry, from a mid-tier slayer to a top tier support in numbers. You can't say that with sitar. You can't multiply a sitar and get extra power from it. It's gonna muddy up the team. So yeah, trombone still has its place in A tier, but sitar is just such a unique instrument that I wish I could say more about. But in my opinion, based on the sheer wins that this instrument has in its meta and the potential for it to fit into a lot of different contexts that are honestly not that replicable by the synthesizer, sitar gets an A-tier placement. Congratulations to my Indian brothers and sisters, family. Yo, thank you for the $2, Big Aaron. Electric violins to be doing fusion. I'm putting it here. I'm just including both electric and acoustic here because they're not the same instrument, like playing wise, but aesthetically to the listener, they're basically the same once you start putting effects through them or put them through effects. Cello. So I mean, let's talk about something else. It's a situational instrument. It works. We just don't have enough wins, I guess. Like it works. It's a situational instrument that works, but it's B tier. It's higher than it used to be. I'd put it like right there, I'd say. Okay, let's get spicy for a second. Are we ready for this? Or should I do some easier instruments before? I'll do some easier instruments. Koto, I guess I would, again, like, kind of hard to say. Hurdy-gurdy, bro. I mean, like, it's not a give-up tier anymore, which is good. Harmonica, I guess, has the same potential as the other instruments. We're kind of rapid firing right now. Glock, I mean, the thing is, xylophone and marimba are still on the list. Also, like, vibraphone, like, there's, like, electric vibes, too. Right? Like people putting vibes through effects, all sorts of stuff. Vibes are a really cool instrument, but this meta is about versatility. This meta is about versatility. This meta is about mobility. This meta is about speed. It's about technology. Vibes don't exactly have the same speed as the other instruments. However, they still have an ability to play the music. So they're still going to get an A-tier placement because we definitely still have a lot of vibes in the music, in the meta. They still can't go to S tier, but they have a placement. Would I put sitar above? I wouldn't put sitar above vibes. I put vibes right there. Flute. This is the meta where flute gets a significant buff in a way that it's never gotten before. So we're talking about Hubert Laws. Who else? Modern 7.0 players. Nesta Torres. I mean, Hubert Laws, man. When you have notable wins with both Herbie and Jocko, at the very least, and then you yourself are a name. I mean, this instrument, like, it's such an incredibly valid support instrument. It like goes above Barry for me. This instrument right here is so good because now if you're expecting every instrument to be amplified, right? If you're expecting every instrument to be amplified, mics are basically a requirement now for horns. So with that being said, you would think that clarinet should also be an A because of that reason, right? It doesn't have the wins. Aesthetically, it's not the same. Flute has always had more of an aesthetic presence in 7.0. Incredible aesthetic presence. So with the mic DLC attachment for the flute, bruh, this instrument can take basically anyone on at that point. It's an incredible support that's valid in basically any comp. You throw flute to any team comp, it's gonna do damage. It's gonna be great. Really lightweight. It's more of a scout instrument. Really lightweight. It can offer a bit of support, but just overall, it's a great instrument to splash in any comp that does some good chip damage. It's a chip damage instrument, basically. It's a chip damage instrument. We considering Pro Tools like a sampling shop? I'm talking about 7.0 specifically. The reason why I don't look at kind of about Vibra Slap your tank zombie. I'm not considering music production technology because those are basically a form of synthesizer. Yeah, Dave Liebman on flute with Miles. Did Steve Grossman also play flute? I'm pretty sure Steve Grossman also played flute. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. Bassoon. Bassoon hasn't dropped. Paul Hansen. Y'all. Paul Hansen is bringing this instrument to the forefront, bro. Like, Paul Hansen is really like, I think I'd do that. Paul Hansen, man. Y'all got to check out Paul. Paul is such a crazy player. 2 OP on the bassoon, dude. Check him out. He has been taking tournaments in 7.0. He's showing that this instrument has absolute crazy potential. I never thought that 3 tier lists in a row, bassoon will be up here in B tier. Dude, it's crazy. Yeah, we're going to put bass drum down here. Single bass drum down here. Single bass drum down here. Single snare drum down here. This is not a meta that... This is not a meta where these are valid here. Like, you could... I mean, let's put them here. They work because you could splash them in if you really wanted to, but... And I guess an extra bass drum... I guess? I don't know why you'd want it, but I guess you can do it. I think bass bone above OG. This is not a instruments you like or I like tier list. This is a instruments with wins in the meta. What instruments win games? That's what we're talking about. Yes, Parker. Absolutely. Banjo. I mean, we got to be real. This is Legacy 7.0 meta. But Fusion is still Fusion. It earns a spot in B tier. Fusion is still Fusion. Bela Fleck counts as Fusion. And because banjo and mandolin all have, because both banjo and violin both have the same OP qualities that make guitar a very high. I have hiccups. I got to get rid of them for a second. Very high tier instrument in this meta. They don't go any lower than B tier. These instruments cannot go lower than B tier specifically because they have way too much utility. And they can all go through the new technology and the new console. Pedals are it. Effects are it. Right? The new effect DLC is basically buffs every instrument that can plug into them. And if you can't use those attachments, if the instruments you pick cannot use those attachments, you're going to be at a disadvantage. Because if you're playing, basically it's mods. Yeah, exactly. If you can't play with those mods, you're going to lose to the players that do have mods. So the fact that these instruments in some way can make use of these mods means that they're going to have an edge over the competition. Like always. So yeah, mandolin and banjo players, you get a spot up here. We haven't talked about vocals yet. So, if we're talking about different regions, this might be different. But in this meta, this is the first time, I think, let me see, is this the first time? Let me check. No, it's not the first time. Okay, great. Well, this is the second, not great, but sorry. This is the second time that vocals get a B tier placement in this meta. Right there, I'd say. Because this meta kind of wrote out vocals. This meta kind of wrote out vocals. And honestly, funny enough, vocals in this meta would be most prevalent in other servers. but not the North American server. In other servers like India and Latin America, that's where the vocals will have the most highest placement. But in the most played servers in America, the most played regions in America, most players are not opting into vocals because a lot of the thing is, this was a time. This is almost like 7.0 is a really interesting patch because 7.0 is a patch where there were a lot of players that were taking the same approach that 4.0 players are taking, where it's like, hey, this is our instrument focused meta, right? There's a lot of pop being played, but we're playing pop sounding stuff on our instruments now. And if the singers can't keep up with the types of flurries and random crazy lines and altered this and that, right? Like with like perfect precision that the other instruments could execute, then they were going to get left behind. So, no, here's the thing. Singers can go into pedals, though. That is not a thing. Singers can go into pedals. But the thing is, it was such a niche pick. Like, you don't need... The thing about vocals is that you don't need vocals in this patch. Instruments in A and above are like instruments you can make cases for. Vocals, you have to play around the vocals in this patch. Yes, what Malik said. Yes. The moment you introduce something para-acoustic to jazz, it terminates its fundamental nature inherent to jazz, and thus renders it unjazz to say. Like, I'm not saying that it renders it unjazz. That's the only part I disagree with, but the first part is absolutely true. The moment you introduce something para-acoustic to jazz, it terminates its fundamental nature in jazz. Because that's the thing. The difference between instruments like, I don't know, let's say guitar, right? Like, let's say instruments like guitar, which I'm not going to place yet because I want to make that a big reveal. This is where guitar is going to go. We all know it's an S tier instrument, but like where, right? So the difference between instruments like all these instruments here and above, even some of these, right? Like, they all can go into pedals, right? But these instruments, there's just like an option to go in. Like, hey, like there's an option to be amplified. There's an option to do this, but it doesn't make or break. The vocals are a type of instrument that would need the pedals. It needs the effects to be interesting. Otherwise, once again, if you're an instrument that where the person has to be built different in order to stand out in the meta to get wins, it's not the instrument, it's the player. Exactly, Philip. Yeah. Like, you know, like doing percussive types of things on vocals or whatever, simulating, you know, other effects, simulate other instruments. A lot of times it's not the instrument itself. It's not the vocals themselves that people like. You have to want the vocals, right? To like sing a melody. Like, you want some extra effect, you know, but you're not really going to sing lyrics that much anymore. There's not a lot of lyrics in this meta. And because there's not a lot of lyrics in this meta, it's like, it's hard to put it up. Will vocoder get a separate tier? That's a good point. I put vocoder in the same category as like these synths. Because like the thing is, you don't need to be a good singer to play you don't need to be a good singer to go through a vocoder. All you gotta do is just go just like sing a note. Just sing a note into the thing and then play the pitch that you want to play. So because of that, I can't count that because you're technically cheating. If you're gonna put a vocoder against a vocalist to sing the same line, vocoders are cheating. So yeah. But vocalists have to be built different in order to stand out in this meta. Like they just have to. Went back. I appreciate your rating for the violin. Yeah, I mean violin has a bunch of notable wins in this meta. Cajon. I mean, it's fusion, but like this is the first time that it can be in B tier. The reason why it's in B tier and not higher is because like you don't really need it. Like you can't splash it in with a drum set. Basically, this instrument is like you play it when you don't have a drum set. So it's kind of hard to like rank it high. But the thing is, it's higher than. Let's see, what was it? Let me see. What was it in the other tiers? Like patch 4.0. It's like D tier. Yeah. And then in 8.5, it was C tier. But in this patch, it's B tier because this instrument, the way people groove, right? The play style of the players changed in this meta. So because the play styles changed, you now have the option, like if you wanted to play a groove, you can play that, which means that you can fit the function and the role of a groove. You don't have to swing. You don't have to be specifically a snare drum, be specifically a bass drum and sound like them. You don't have to do that, or a ride cymbal. You can just be a cajon. So like there is application for the instrument. Like there actually is application for it. But the problem is that like it can't be added to a percussion ensemble without getting in the way of the attacks and the range and the area of effect of the other instruments in the comp. It just doesn't work that well. So cajon is something else. Yeah, bass flute, it's kind of like, I mean, I'll put it in B tier, just only because it's the same as flute right now, where like it can do a lot. But the problem is that there's just not enough wins that we know on bass flute. That's it. But it can work. Same thing with melodica. I don't know. Like melodica is B tier. We don't really have a lot of like it can do stuff. But where are the wins? I don't know. Like it can do stuff. Like B is like the yeah, you can do it if you want, but there's just no notable wins. That's kind of what B tier is. Like, but yeah. C melody. Sorry, Frankie. Frankie, you're I mean, like you can do it, but see, at first, Frankie looked like he had aura, but now he just looks sad. Now he just looks sad. It's all right, it's okay. You have a friend. You have a friend in the bass sax, right? You have a friend. And now he has a friend. He looks so sad. He's like looking at it, I was like, man, I used to be the best. You know, he's like, I used to be top tier. It's like, all right, Grandpa, time to go to bed. Man, 2.0, back in 2.0, I would have smoked all y'all. I would have smoked all y'all in 2.0. Sorry. Loud maze at melodica stuff, but I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Listen, I can't put instruments like melodica and harmonica any higher because it's you can just synthesize a melodica sound. You can just synthesize it. Like U-bass. I mean, well, now let's do the basses. Let's do the basses later. Didgeridoo. That's what I say. My Japanese came out. Didgeridoo doko. Didgeridoo tirisu no naka de doko de doko de omoimasu ka? I was like, why did my Japanese come out? But yeah, didgeridoo. I mean, if you want, again, D is like, you know, like you can do something, I guess. I mean, these instruments like oboe and like English horn, like they don't have it. They haven't had any place down here in the meta. Like they're just gone. They're basically kind of gone. But because they have keys, because they're woodwind instruments, I guess they can do something. We just don't have the wins. Same thing with like lute and oud. I mean, like their guitars, you can do something with them. They're definitely higher than D tier now. They're no longer D tier instruments. I'd put them above the oboe. Y'all got a buff. They're just, where are the wins? Sitar has more wins than these instruments. I mean, like I would love to see someone push these instruments in Fusion. But we just don't have the win. We don't have the data. Like, where's the data? I don't know where the data is. But I'm sure there are players that play these instruments nowadays in 7.0. Like, a lot of players that actually will play this stuff, which is great. We love to see it. Valve trombone. I mean, like, valve trombone can do stuff. So, because it can do stuff, here's the funny thing, man. Like, valve trombone, man, has a lot more potential than regular trombone to play the type of stuff. I'm tempted to put it at the bottom of A tier with trombone, but we just don't have the wins. So I'm going to put it at the top of B tier above bass clarinet just because we don't have the data. Lute is top of the list in Bardcore. What is that? Like patch like 0.09 or something? I don't know. Concertina. Below didgeridoo? I don't know. Roland SPD drum pad / drum machine. Yeah, we're going all the way up here. Drums get. I said I was going to talk about drums. Drums gets a big boost over these for one reason. We're talking about aura boost. Aura boost, versatility, also modularity that these instruments don't have. These instruments must be plugged in. You must have, you know what I'm saying? These instruments must be plugged in all the times. Drums do not have to be. You can break down the drums into smaller components. This thing has to be programmed. So this is a meta that is about the players, not about the money. So because this is about the players, right? The thing is, the drum machine can still do a lot of stuff, right? This is a sound effect meta. Absolutely. You're right. This is a sound effect meta. But the thing is, a lot of drummers simply just pick one of these. They just have it. Matter of fact, I can't put this above these. I can't put this above these. I'm going to put this here. It's top of A tier. I can't do it. Simply because there's one reason why I cannot put this above an S tier. S tier instruments must be instruments that can cut every other instrument on the list. Why can this not cut every other instrument? Because, once again, this thing is too overpowered. You can get a keyboard synthesizer and synthesize all the drum sounds that an SPD can do. What's the difference between an SPD and a keyboard? One of them you're hitting with a stick, and the other one you're hitting with your fingers. Also, just in case you all don't know, instruments like this have freaking drum pads on them. A keyboard can come with a freaking mini SPD on them if you so desired. That's kind of rough. You said above piano? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's put it in respective places. Piano here, like piano is just like piano is just an outclass keyboard. SPD is an outclass drum. Right? So that's that. Also, you can, if you really wanted to, you could play a gig entirely on SPD. It won't be the same, but you can. Are there any dedicated drum pad players though? Yes. I played with one. This is Indian drummer. I forgot his name, but I played a gig with Jonathan Marin, incredible bass player. You know, he played with like D'Angelo and a lot of other people. I played a gig with him when I was living in the Bronx. This is like, it was like 2018, 19 or something. And he only played drum machine. It was very sick. Like he was actually a very sick player. We can still mod piano and dev options. Yeah, but you don't even need to do it with this thing. It just gets outclassed. You guys are like, hey, but what about? The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Piccolo trombone. I mean, like, let's put it over here. Like, I don't know. You can do stuff on it. Ain't nobody doing anything on it though. Sousaphone and tuba. Okay, so again, because of this meta, and because you can still technically do stuff, this is the meta where these instruments actually get a little bit of a boost. They go to B tier. These instruments work in this meta. You can build an ensemble around these instruments if you really wanted to. The thing is, you'd be very limited, right? You'd be very limited, and you have to be built different. But there's an absolute place for tuba and sousaphone in ensembles for this meta, which is really nice. Why is Sousa above tuba? Sousa's always going to be above tuba. Like, just period. Like, because of mobility, because of the versatility of the instrument, ergonomics, and ability to cut. It's always going to be above tuba, in general. In this meta. We're talking about competitive. You can get up and stretch your legs. Yeah, exactly. Like, the fatigue is lower. The sound is a lot punchier. It's a lot clearer, direct. So even in situations where you did want to play maybe like acoustic fusion stuff, it still would work better. Better on your back, yeah, a lot of that stuff. Recorder, I mean, we got Solve Benoit. I mean, this is B tier, bro. It's not C tier. This instrument can do stuff. You can go for it, bro. Piccolo gets a buff, but it's not. It's like up here. Piccolo works again because of the meta is like an amplified meta, which means that even the horns are going to be amplified. So. Yeah. Wait, that's not. This is tuba, right? I keep putting the wrong instrument. Yeah, sorry. This is tuba. We're gonna put the euphonium here too, just because like it works, but no one's really doing anything with it. French horn, we got our first C tier brass. Again, just we need wins. We need wins. Oh yeah, violin and viola. So like, we need, how many wins do we have on viola? It's just not as popular. But we're gonna put it at the top of B tier because it has the same buffs as violin in this meta, but just doesn't really have the wins. And like, there's gonna be more people are gonna pick up violin in this meta than viola in general. Absolutely not C tier. No, the string. You got to remember, any instrument that has the ability to plug in is gonna have an advantage. If you can plug in, you can go. Shakuhachi, Zach Zinger. I mean, he's the only. I mean, this fusion, it goes next to the recorder. Because of him, there are notable wins of Shakuhachi in this music, and this is a global server meta. This is a global server meta. This is no longer a region lock game. This is like all servers are viable now. All servers have a scene. So, bagpipes. I mean, bruh, like. Listen, bruh. For the first time, I did just say all servers have a scene, didn't I? Bruh, bagpipes just, who's out there doing it, bro? Who's out there doing it, man? Tell me, chat, tell me, who's out there doing it, bro? Bro, I've been getting the same reels, Dave. I just got the reel of the guy playing giant steps starting on like the B chord instead of the E flat chord. Yeah, it's diatonic, but like I don't know. There's some type of, I think, what is it, concert bagpipes? That might be some chromatics, or I don't know. Like, I think you in relation to other instruments, just don't do it, bro. Like, it's not as bad as timpani. Just don't do it though, bro. Pipe organ, you know what? I could put pipe organ in D because again, like the way this meta. First of all, this is the first time that pipe organ gets a place. Guys, all my pipe organ mains, rise up. Pipe organ mains, rise up. You can at least still play chromatically. And this meta is a sound meta, right? And you can fill up a room. What better instrument that could fill up the room than a pipe organ? I mean, you can't bring it anywhere. You have to literally go to a church. You got to do your fusion concert in a church. But you can do something. Yeah, the instrument is the room. The room is the instrument. So like, yeah, you can do something. Like, I sincerely do not think that this instrument is in Just Give Up. I sincerely think that like this instrument, any instrument that's a not Just Give Up, is the instrument that like someone hasn't done anything with, but they just should start. Like, they have to start doing it. Matter of fact, controversial take. Pipe organ goes above koto. I said it here first, folks. Pipe organ's in C tier. I think we need some fusion pipe organists. I think the instrument got a lot of potential. Absolute potential. I think this instrument got to get pushed. The instrument got to get, I want to see some more pipe organ fusion players. Here's the thing. Keyboard can replicate the sound of the pipe organ. It cannot replicate the physical feeling of it. That's why it's creeping up. It's creeping up. But this thing, if you want a pipe organ, like, come on, bro. Are you gonna go to church? Or are you just gonna press patch number 79 on your DX7? And like, what are you gonna do? Or I don't know what. Like, which one? Which one are you gonna do? Yeah, exactly, doctor. Feel is not that important in 7.0. Triangle. I mean, if you're a percussion ensemble, it's like, like solo triangle versus playing all the percussion. I don't know if it's give up. This is a percussion meta. It's a percussion meta. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, no, it's not above that. But there is a case to be made for like those like handheld triangles. Bro, Nega Santos, she's unbelievable triangle. Have you heard her play triangle and all those other like kind of Brazilian triangle players and stuff like that? Nah, man. I mean, you can, if I think you got a shot, bro. I think you got a shot if you want to play some triangle. It's meta, dude. I think you got a shot. I think you actually got a shot. Steel Pan, C tier. It's not D tier. C tier. But no, it's B. It's B. It's B. For one reason and one reason only. If we're talking about legacy, like true legacy, yes, you're about to say it. Lily said it. Othello Molyneux. Matter of fact, I would raise this thing even a bit. This thing gets a rise in the ranks. It's above accordion. This thing is absolute high mid B tier because when you got high wins with Jaco Pastorius, and you're also killing, and you got modern 7.0 players like Leon Foster Thomas. There's a lot of steel pan prodigies out there in the Caribbean too right now. Caribbean server, kind of OP. This instrument is S tier in the Caribbean server. I mean, bro. Steel Pan got it. Steel Pan got it, bro. Like it's again, percussion meta is OP, bro. This is basically sound and shred meta. If you can sound and shred, you got it. That being said, I don't think Glock really, I mean, yes, it can play more notes than a triangle. Okay. So what? All right, so if I put vibes up here, where did the marimba and the xylophone go? So, because of people like Frank Zappa, right? Because of people like Frank Zappa, who dabbled in 7.0 competitively. Some people are like, oh, is he a 7.0 player? I don't know. But these instruments are no longer at the bottom of B or in C. I think both these instruments have a spot. But yeah, I think marimba's is an A tier instrument. I said it. I did it. Xylophone though is B tier. Just because of the sheer application of it. It's still pretty dang on good, right? But I think I'd put the bass clarinet above that at least. No, I think bass clarinet's above the viola here. But marimba is up there. Marimba, because it's a percussion meta, and because we have the ability to mic and amplify these instruments now the marimba can be heard in a way that it could never be heard before. Marimba got a spot. The thing is, vibes are more widely used. They have more wins. Vibes players can also double on marimba. Yeah, but there are a lot of notable wins. Like this is absolutely an instrument you could spec into now, and it has and actually gives a lot of interesting sonic palettes and textures to your ensemble. So it's a good instrument. The reason why Steel Pan's not higher is because, again, it has potential, which means it's viable to use and check out. But it doesn't have the wins. It just doesn't have the wins. It needs wins. Tin Whistle. I mean, bro, it's fusion, so it has viability, but who's doing anything on it? I don't know. Okay. We can rank the guitars in a little bit. We're getting close to it. Hammond B3 organ. This is hard. This is hard. I know what everyone wants to say. There's a lot of people that want it to be S. There's a lot of people that want it to be S. This is hard. This is hard. Unfortunately, guys, this is A tier. But I can't. I gotta put it. I gotta put it here. I gotta put it here. I gotta put it here. Yeah, it's lower than piano. So here's the thing. You know what? The only way for me to talk about this is to talk about another instrument right now. First, let's rank the acoustic bass. Where's the acoustic bass in this meta? Well, everyone, for the first meta, the first time ever in history, we got an upset to the acoustic bass. Acoustic bass got a gigantic upset. It's still a very important instrument. Now listen, bass is extremely important in all music. Ever since, basically since 3.0, this instrument has not dropped into low tier ever. But in this meta, there's one instrument that goes above the acoustic bass. But the acoustic bass doesn't go so low. Acoustic bass is about right here. You can't, listen, in 7.0, you cannot count out Miroslav Vitus. You can't count out Boris Kozlov. You can't count out Stanley freaking Clark. Hello? Hello? Stanley freaking Clark. Christian McBride. Hello? You can't take them out. You can't take them out. You can't take these instruments out. But there's another instrument that in this meta completely outclasses it in basically every single way. And that's the electric bass. Now, where in this meta does this instrument go? Right here. Electric bass. This is the reason why this instrument is here. The timbre of the electric bass, the timbre of the Hammond B3 organ's low end, competes directly with the electric bass unless you tune it a certain way. If you're gonna be, once again, in this meta, right? The reason why organ can never be an S tier instrument is because you're gonna be you have to be built different to be able to do all three limbs at once. And if you're not using all three limbs at once, you're only using 66% of the instrument. In this meta, what happens? What happens in this meta? In this meta, we now have the new console. And on new consoles, the new consoles can emulate legacy hardware. So because they can emulate legacy hardware, you now have a keyboard that if you want an organ, what are you going to do? Try to find this clunky thing that has two parts, by the way. It has the instrument plus the Leslie cabinet, the speaker for the actual organ. You need the speaker and the instrument, and it must be in good condition. Be careful when traveling it, and also be careful if you're just a local scene who wants to host regional tournaments and host locals. You're not going to get your hand. The chance of you getting your hands on a Hammond are very low, but your chance of getting a keyboard that can have an organ patch is very high. That's the problem. You say you also need a speaker for a keyboard, but again, if you want to play the Hammond B3 organ, you need the Leslie. You know what I'm saying? If you want to play a Hammond sound or a patch, all you need is a little amp or something for the keyboard, and it'll work. And that's the problem. And the only reason why somebody said, okay, what about piano? Why is it lower than piano? Piano just has more use case. It has more use case than the organ, sonically. With the way this meta works, you're going to be dealing with a lot of soundscapes, especially from like the electric guitar and all of its pedals, from the bass low end that you're competing with, and also maybe like the drums. They're miking the bass drum now. There's so much stuff going on sonically. All the crazy percussion. There's so much stuff that the organ is going to have to crank in order to be heard over that. The piano has the option of being just percussive. You can mic it and tune the highs up a little bit. It's gonna cut through. It does never have to compete with the electric bass. It actually has a better relationship with the electric bass now. It's great. Like you can build a comp around the piano. Organ is a great instrument because it's still a keyboard instrument. It still does great stuff. It's still going to be an instrument that has a lot of wins in this format, but it's extremely conditional. You have to, again, this is the instrument you have to build a comp around. It's not a pure support instrument. It's a very clunky support instrument. Hammond is not more versatile. You have to be built different for this instrument to do what the bass does, and then you can't use the bass. That's the problem. So that's where I'm standing on that. So that being said, so let's talk about what we know why electric bass is above acoustic bass, right? So all these instruments in S tier outclass these instruments in A tier. Let's talk about the obvious first. Electric is electric and amplified. Bass is not, even though it can be. Electric bass is basically an electric guitar that's lower, which means it's a lot easier to play. The bass is not, and it's fretless. It's fretless and also a bigger instrument. This instrument can be carried on a plane pretty easily. Not easily, but way more easily than an electric bass. You can travel to other servers with a lot less risk than this thing. Right? The sound is a lot more flexible to use with the new pedal DLC and attachments than this instrument. This instrument is also exponentially cheaper than this instrument. If you want to get an acoustic bass that's the same price as an electric bass, you're going to sacrifice a lot of quality. Electric bass just outperforms the acoustic bass in this format very often, especially because, remember, for team play, this is the meta where team play became the meta, basically. In bebop, solo play and kind of 1v1s, PvP were way more common. But in this meta, there was a new type of play style, a new strategy that the bands used against opposing teams. Super OP strategy that once they figured it out, changed everything. It's called the unison line. Now, the unison line play strategy basically meant that all the instruments are playing the same line in some kind of way, either rhythmically or melodically. That means that acoustic players were at a disadvantage. Even if they could play as fast, they probably had to lower their action, which basically kind of decreases or like kind of nerfs the natural acoustic attack effect of the instrument. You're gonna turn it way up, right? And then like play all the way up on the fretboard. Whereas you don't really have to do that for electric bass. You can play in the instrument's intended range faster than this instrument. So that unison line play style, basically, when it was time to go, like all types of bands. If you got a band, listen, you got a band that's playing with just A tier instruments versus S tier instruments. If they're all doing 1v1s, they might kind of clash. They might have some 50-50s. But as soon as someone looks over and says, "All right, on me, on your six, let's go, hoorah, let's go out, let's execute it." Right? You got the whole squad rolling out. Boom, ding, ding, digga, ding, gong, but digga, ding, digga, ding, dong. Or boom, boom, but digga, ding, don't, so ding, go, and everybody's playing that. That's a full-on frontal assault. That's an all-out attack in Persona 5. That's all-out attack. So this instrument is going to have a lot easier time doing that than this. The only time this instrument is going to do it better than this is when they're built different. Again, Stanley Clarke, Christian McBride, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the electric bass is just an instrument that can just do it a lot more efficiently. Yeah, got a match. Right, exactly. So that's extremely important play strategy that became very, very popular in the 7.0 meta. S tier CTs on dust tier. You know what I'm saying? PvP VE, where collabs could happen and PvPs can. Yeah, exactly. Depends if you got a self-taught. Anyway, harp. Harp is interesting, man. Again, this is fusion. I'd put harp above. I put it here. Harp has a place in this meta. Harp absolutely has a place in this meta. All right, now we're down to basically the guitar-like instruments. Some of the guitar-like instruments here, right? Ukulele. I mean, it gets outclassed. It can be because it can do stuff. It's here. But I can't put it above the mandolin and the banjo. I just can't do that. Um, Pedal steel guitar and other variants of it, pretty good instrument, but it just like it does stuff, but it just doesn't have enough application in this metal. We don't have enough wins on it because the type of sound that you could get on it, again, you could try to emulate on guitar. It's not going to be the same at all, but you could try, especially with like double neck guitars and all that kind of stuff that people have. We didn't talk about tap dance. I mean, like it's B tier. It's rhythm. It's still percussion meta. It still has the aura, right? Like, but you're not gonna to support a band with tap. The thing is, like, auxiliary percussion is the meta, right? The same things I told you guys about tap dance in 4.0 apply here. The same things apply here. And the reason why they apply here is because tap is just one of those things where, like, you can't put it in the back. It can't stand back. It's possible, but this is the instrument that wants to be on the front line. It doesn't do enough of its job if it's in the back line. It's like I don't know, like if you're playing, you're playing Splatoon, right? Or like maybe not Splatoon. Let's say if you're playing like any type of FPS. It's like putting a pistol in a sniper perch. Like, I don't know, maybe you might get a hit somewhere close by, but like it doesn't have the range. It wants to be out in front. It wants to be out in front. So that's the only reason why it does that. All right. We have more guitar-like instruments. Arpeggi. Arpeggi is cool. I mean, Arpeggi has a place in this meta because, like, again, it's fusion, so you can do a lot. I'd put it in A tier because, like, it's a guitar-like instrument. I'd definitely put it above. The only thing is there's no one pushing it. The only problem is just like there's no one pushing it. Should I put this above the sitar? I think I would. Because it has so much potential as an instrument. It's just not played enough. But, like, it can do a lot. It can do a lot. Oh, yeah, I didn't talk about ocarina. Did they? I mean, like, guys, I mean, it's fusion, so you can do more. It's not give up. But it's also still not chromatic. No one's really doing anything on it. The only reason why Koto is in C tier, well, you know what? No, to be fair, I probably shouldn't put Koto in C tier if that's the case. Because I was saying, like, Koto is, like, one of those instruments that does have a place in fusion as, like, a world music thing. Whereas, like, these instruments, like, don't really, like, it's the same thing with, like, harp, right? Like, or lute or oud. If I'm putting lute or oud in this tier, I have to put Koto here because it's fusion, right? We're talking about, East Asian servers. It's applicable. Exactly. Like, yeah. Arpeggi is a piano guitar. This instrument has potential, just no one's pushing it. But it can absolutely do stuff. Keytar. Should I do that? Should I wait? Should I wait? Should I wait on Keytar? I'll wait on Keytar. Pan flute. I mean, dude. Pan flute? Dude, am I about to put pan flute above the oboe? I mean, above the oboe and the English horn? Am I about to put pan flute above these instruments right now? Yes, I'm doing it. Sorry, I there's too much evidence now. There's too much evidence now, dude. Dude, I mean, Damien, bro. Exactly, Parker. It's basically a harder flute. It's a more difficult flute. The thing is, because of the global server expansion, world music, as we call it, it's like whatever we like to call that, world music, quote unquote, this has a place in the world of 7.0. What do we do about the Chapman stick? Chapman stick, I'm going to put in the same place as the Harpeggi, just above it. Because it's a crazy instrument. It's a crazy instrument, right? Like, it can do so much. The fact that it can do two things at once is wild. You can tap without strumming it, which makes it easier as well. But it's the same. It fits the same niche as Harpeggi. It's like an instrument that, like, you can play it, but people aren't really specking into it as much as instruments like guitar or keyboard. Like, why not? You know, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, it's weird in that way. I should have theremin. That's such a good point. Okay. Acoustic guitar. Guys. Acoustic guitar in this meta. Acoustic guitar in this meta is a oof. That's a oof. That's a big old B tier, buddy. Behind bass clarinet, I'd say. Big upset for acoustic guitar, man. It's still a guitar, though. It's still a guitar. You said acoustic below banjo? Absolutely not. It's still a guitar. It can still be used. Exactly, JS. Exactly. Because we have guitarists that have notable wins with acoustic guitar, we can't put it lower like that. But it's definitely lower than A tier. It can't be A. You said maybe a little generous? I don't think I'm being generous with it. I think it works. Like, I mean, again, when we're talking about world servers, the guitar can still be mic'd. And also, folk music is still a part of this meta, too. Jazz folk fusion is also still a thing. Which is the reason why instruments like banjo and mandolin are on here on this list. Yeah, Al Di Meola, Pat. A lot of people have acoustic guitar stuff. John McLaughlin, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, man, the Latin American servers, like, you can't, this. Guys, acoustic guitar was going strong, but just not strong enough because it got outclassed by this guy. But we're going to talk about that in a second. Let's go to keytar. Oh, wait, we forgot to put the oud. Or the oud-like instrument. We're going to put this down here. But keytar, the moment we've all been waiting for. Keytar, guys. What am I going to do with this in this meta? Spoiler alert, it has a gigantic, it's this meta, it's up there. It's way up. But it's still basically just a keyboard. Like, guys, the keytar is a keyboard. It's a keyboard. The keytar is a keyboard. It's an extra keyboard. And it's a keyboard that you have to hold like a guitar. Which means that generally, you're only doing one thing with this instrument. You're not putting it on a stand. People want this thing. Guys. I almost want to do this. Dude. Because again, the piano still does more. It has more application. Like the keytar has a lot going for it, but people aren't comping on keytar, right? Like people aren't playing two-handed keytar. Some people are, right? But then you're only using Again, you're cutting out like 20-30% of the instrument when you do that. Keyboard can do everything that a guitar can do because it's the same instrument, just built differently. The mod wheel is on the left hand. It's a guitar-shaped keyboard. It's called keytar. And it does both things less efficiently. Guys, it has less versatility than a regular keyboard. And it's going to have a worse sounding guitar patch than an actual guitar. So the reason why it's A tier is because you can still have it as an attachment. You can bust it out for some effect. You can play it, but it's not an instrument that's going to replace the keyboard in any way. This is not an instrument that you can just like spec your whole comp into. You can't. If I put this up here like this, that means that this instrument has more utility than a piano. Are you serious? In the same class, this instrument has to outclass both the piano and the guitar to do that. There's no way. It's not low A because it's still a keyboard. It's still a keyboard. Guys, it's still a keyboard. It's still a synthesizer. Anything that's a synthesizer is going to be able to do way more than either instrument on the list. Just period. Also, what's up, Jackie? Yeah, I have seen 17-year-old Joey when he like his debut at Miles. Ridiculous. Ukulele bass. I mean, Kali U bass. We don't. I mean, it's. What are people? I mean, it's fusion, so you can do something. I'm gonna put it next to the acoustic bass, which is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. It's wild that it's here. But technically in this meta, it can work. It does, and there are wins. There's technically more wins in 7.0 than any other patch. This is basically one patch that Ubase has more than like has wins in. Yes, Ubase over the Hammond, specifically because it has. Well, I can't put. Here's the thing. Doing this means that I'm ranking the Ubase as being worse, having less wins, worse utility, and so either way, either worse solo wins, worse a lower amount of support wins, and a lower amount of versatility and modularity than a percussion ensemble, auxiliary percussion. There's no way I can't do that. Sorry, wait. Wait. Wait, what? I was saying that percussion ensemble has more versatility, and I was saying my brain short-circuited. Yes. I didn't want to put this below flute. So, no. The thing I was trying to say is, I'm saying that me putting Ubase below all these instruments means that it has more wins, but it doesn't have more wins. Wait. What am I saying anymore? Forget what I said. I'm short-circuiting right now. Let's put Ubase right there. Just cut all of this. Cut all of this. This is where Ubase is going because it has a potential. But it has a lot of wins in this meta. That's the reason why it's there. Put the brain in the bag. Yeah, get out of here. Get out of here. Let me talk about stuff that I know what I'm talking about. I want to save guitar for last. Sopranino, let's have some fun. There's no real wins in this. It's going to be in B. Let's do the horns a little bit later. Let's talk about guitar. S tier, above the bass. Why is it below the drums? Why is it below the drums and why is it below the keys? So the drums and the guitar, both of these instruments have the luxury of being easy to play, like to start off playing. They both have an extremely low skill floor, which is amazing. You can just like blank struck something. You can also go bap, and hit something, great. That's the first step you need. And you're already doing great. You're already doing great, right? Also, they have an unbelievably high skill ceiling. So like these are the two instruments that are basically so neck and neck with each other when it comes to like matchups, because like they're both equally as impressive. They're both equally as intense. They're instruments that you could have a tier list where someone could put this here and make an argument for that, and I wouldn't be mad at them. I would probably hear their argument out. Like either one of these are interchangeable. But my list, the reason why my list is here is because of the sheer utility of the drums. In this meta, you don't want to not have a drum set. In this meta, you can opt to not have a guitar. You don't want to because it's such a ubiquitous instrument in this meta. But the other thing is one more important thing, guys, that I hate to say. Because of synthesizer meta, guys, if you really needed to, I mean, you don't want to do it. This still earns a spot. You could emulate the guitar on a synthesizer. On a keytar, if you really want to do that. People do that all the time. It's like synthesizer is too OP, dude. It's a but guitar is like the absolute most unique, ubiquitous, and powerful both solo and support string instrument in the entire meta. It does so much. And this is the first meta, by the way, of the entire jazz set, because we're taking from rock, right? This is the element of rock that we're taking. If we're taking from the rock side, you can actually double the amount of guitars you have and have double the power. That's OP. This is the first time that a guitar can actually be multiplied for more effect, where one person's playing almost a more keyboard comping role, and then another guitar player is playing a lead role. Now you have a true fusion sound and effect. My audio isn't working? What? I think it's just for you, Jake. I think y'all should, in the future, assume that, like, maybe something's on your side before shouting at me that my audio's not working. Thank you. But yeah, this instrument has so much versatility. It's so ubiquitous. It's basically the face of fusion. The guitar is arguably the face of jazz fusion, which is why it's here. And so far, all of these instruments, you can make a band with just these instruments, and you have a fusion band. That's you have a fusion band with just these instruments. So let's talk about some other things here. So Iwi. Where does this thing go? I like what you guys are thinking. But this is a competitive meta. I'm going to show you guys where Iwi goes. My case for Iwi as a competitive player, Olivia got it before I could say anything. It's not S tier. Sorry, my woodwind players. Iwi is not an S tier instrument. Not when instruments like the keytar exist. It's low. Not when instruments like the keytar exist. Here's one reason why the keytar is higher than the Iwi. First of all, the Iwi suffers from the same thing that the trombone does in terms of the high barrier of entry to the instrument. You would think that the Iwi is a very easy instrument to play. This part of it is very easy. Turn that thing around, and then you have what you really have to practice. As an Iwi player, one of the reasons I gave up that instrument and why you don't see, and why there are so few Iwi players in the meta in general, right? Like the few Iwi players are actually like killing. But Iwi is harder to play than saxophone because of the octave mechanic. Not only that, the most iconic Iwi and the Iwi that people still play to this day is actually the 4000S, not the 5000. So if we're counting the 5000, then yeah, you could make a case that what I'm about to say maybe doesn't matter anymore. But the way that you load patches onto the 4000 through like the MIDI cable, there's no USB. There's only an onboard sound bank that has subpar sounds at best. The main sounds are so cheesy. There's only like maybe 4 or 5 sounds that like Iwi players that generally want to play on that thing. Otherwise, they all go to Patchman sounds. Look at the tutorial on how to put them on there. And again, the barrier of entry to this instrument keeps a lot of people away from it. So if we're talking about other types of synthesizers, I'm lumping other wind controllers in this, by the way. I'm lumping the WX5, the MEO, the Roland Aerophone, whatever some other the other newer ones, right? I'm lumping all of them here because they can never do what the Keytar can do, which is like just easy. First of all, you can easily load it up. You cannot. A lot of modern Keytars also have like the ability to go USB MIDI, whereas this thing you need to have that weird the MIDI, the stereo MIDI cable interface where you put that into the USB box, which I used to have, a little MIDI Man MIDI Sport, right? Like you can do that, right? Which is honestly, that's one of the reasons why I want to take this, and I'm gonna put this here. I'm gonna put the analog modular synth out of S tier and A tier. The more I think about it, I think this has to come down a tier. I know it sucks, but it has to come down a tier, bro. In the beta test, like we're talking 6.9. Huh? What's happening down here? Bro, chill. It's all good. It's all good, dude. I wasn't mad at you. I don't even know you. Don't worry, dude. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, this instrument got outclassed by the digital synthesizer. Analog synthesizers got outclassed because, first of all, you don't need an entire room. It's an organ problem. It's an organ problem. You don't need an entire room to use this thing. All the sounds that you can make on this thing are optional, right? We're talking about like this is not an aesthetic tier list. This is a pure wins tier list. This instrument, you have to want to spec into analog modular synths. Yes, below Keytar. Because technically the Keytar can have access to all the sounds that this thing can make with the specific patches that you have to make. You know, guys, do you know what patches are? Do you know what patches are? They come from this because they're literal patch cables that you attach to different outlets to route the signal, to route the electrical signal through a different specific pathways to create the sound. A patch is not just like a little file. It's just like when we say save something, save to disk or something, like save, like we don't use floppy disk anymore. It's just like colloquial. Actual patches are things you have to like, you look like a freaking surgeon performing surgery when you use a modular synth. Absolutely, Jackie. Highest accessibility barrier instrument for many reasons. First of all, let's talk about price alone. Like, let's look at the price of a No, we don't want these digital joints. No, not digital. We want like the real ones. I guess let's just do general. Let me take the word Moog out. Vintage modular synthesizer. I want the real ones, dude, with the patches in them. They're like at least they're more than like a Mercedes. No, these are all like pedals. Okay. Regardless, okay, I'm not gonna be able to find what I want on here, but basically, you guys gotta understand, if you want one of these things, you're gonna put down like a down payment on like a house. It's like ridiculous. So the other thing as well is that all these sounds, once again, can be emulated by this instrument. The learning curve to use a modular synth, that's like you got to spend time with it. This is a serious hobby. All just to get a pure analog sound that you aesthetically think is better than a digital one. That's not efficient enough for winning games. It's just not efficient enough. So that's the only reason I had to drop it. We're down to the horns now. Okay. This is a really, really, really weird tier list. Check this out, guys. First off is the alto saxophone. For the first time in history, we do not have an S tier placement for the alto saxophone. Jake, are you trolling? Are you some guys might be trolling now, right? Probably. I mean, some guys just like to troll me. Some young people just like to troll me. Cause somebody, it was like that clarinet guy, and now this was like, yeah. But anyway, alto saxophone. We don't have an S tier placement. Now, saxophones are extremely important. Extremely important. Like, horns are important for jazz fusion, for it to be like fusion, right? It's supposed to be a fusion of jazz elements and other elements. But the problem is that horns, when it came to this meta was all about, when you're playing on the new consoles, what instruments are the easiest to spec into? What instruments are the most efficient to stick into? What instruments have the most modularity? Which instruments are the most affordable at their quality? This, for the first time, we got an A tier placement. Spoiler alert. Basically, all the horns are in A tier. Basically, I had to do some thinking about that. But you're not sure above piano? There's a reason why it's above piano. Absolutely above piano. The saxophone is more in this meta more necessary than piano. Because you can have a keyboard with a saxophone. Right? Saxophones augment. They're great. What about Joe Farrell? Okay. Let me not deal with tenor for a second, but I am going to deal with trumpet. So, trumpet also goes, but I'm going to put trumpet right here. The only reason why I'm not putting trumpet below keytar, the only reason I'm not putting trumpet below keytar is because of Miles Davis. Miles Davis single-handedly had the absolute most wins. Well, also not just Miles. Let's talk about Randy Brecker too. Like, both of these guys, like, because Miles started it, right? Miles was basically the guy who started he was the first beta tester for fusion. He was the beta tester for jazz fusion, guys. And his instrument became very iconic. He basically opened the space for Randy Brecker to make his impact. Right? There was now a market for Randy Brecker to play trumpet and fusion. And also, as a result of that, we had another player that in the more casual market had a lot of wins on this instrument. On the flugelhorn. The flugelhorn is still in this meta because of Chuck Mangione. This instrument is still in here. However, I can't say that it has utility over... Wait, what happened to the... No, that should be like that. Flugelhorn is like just below EWE. Because again, flugelhorn is a less versatile trumpet. Flugel over trumpet. See, again, you're talking about opinions. Remember, guys, we're not doing opinions. Trumpet is not above piano. Piano still has it's too much utility, dude. And also, like, the trumpet in this meta was getting carried by a small amount of people. There were not a ton. Funny enough, you would think that this meta would have way more trumpet players than just like Freddie Hubbard, Miles Davis, and Randy Brecker. But in this meta, there are not a ton of notable trumpet players. Don Ellis, I guess, too. But yeah, also in this meta, we have 2 horns left, 2 instruments left. Where do these instruments go? Now this right here, this is really interesting. Which saxophones are necessary in this meta more than any other saxophones? So, let's do soprano first. Soprano saxophone. Above alto and A tier. Top of A tier. It's not a necessary instrument. Way more wins than alto. It's also a secondary instrument, a secondary pick to tenor. Always. It's a great secondary pick. Problem is, it still suffers from the range issue. It's an effective pick. It's a chip damage or extremely lightweight piercing damage. It's a piercing damage instrument. But it's not this instrument rate had a lot of what's the word? It raised up in the tier, had a lot of upsets over the other instruments. This is the first time we're seeing the upset over alto. Alto got demoted. Alto got alto got upset by the soprano. Now we know why. We can think of Benny Maupin, of course Wayne Shorter, and the person that single-handedly pushed this instrument up through the ranks, regardless if you like him or not, is Kenny G. Kenny G single-handedly brought this instrument above the alto. Grover Washington, Wine Light. I mean, dude, like, yeah, Branford. Technically, if you consider Sting to be 7.0, Branford Marsalis. Even Kenny Garrett's like brief flirtation with 7.0, also soprano. It's like soprano is like tenor players will always bring a soprano to the gig. Tenor players are not bringing an alto to the gig. Of course, Kenny G's fusion, yeah. Especially if you're counting smooth jazz. If this was a purely smooth jazz tier list and not like a fusion, like jazz fusion tier list, alto would probably be up in S tier because of like, Dave Koz and Gerald Albright and David Sanborn. But tenor saxophone, last instrument on the list. Now, if we're in S tier, right? If we're in A tier, if we're in B tier, if we're in C tier, right? D tier. If you're in any one of these tiers, let's go over real quick what all these tiers are. Start from the top. To be an S tier instrument, you must clear every instrument on the list in your class and be a borderline irreplaceable instrument, where if your instrument is added, it's automatically an augment and a boost to your comp. You don't have to plan around it. It works really well for basically every situation. Very versatile. A tier instruments are instruments that can be subbed over S tier instruments if you don't have them, or can be added as an augment, but have certain limitations that make building around them a liability in some ways. But they're still good. However, B tier is where you get to very conditional instruments that, like, if you want to have them in addition to an S tier instrument or A tier instrument, they're fine, but your comp should not be built around them because you suffer from inefficiency issues or clashing. C tier, we already know what that is. It's like C tier, like, instruments can technically possibly do something, but they're worse. B tier instruments have no real place in the meta. No one's pushing them. D is like, well, I don't know. What are you doing? I guess you can try. So where does tenor sax belong? Tenor sax This is very difficult for me to do, believe it or not, because I don't really want to do this, and I'm kind of on the fence right now about whether or not I should do this. But it's going in S tier. Tenor saxophone, by far, out of all of the horns, out of every single horn on the list, has bar none the most amount of wins over everything. Almost over every other instrument below this. Like even over, I mean, like definitely over trumpet, definitely over guitar, definitely over EWI, definitely over SPD. Hard to say over piano, but probably even over piano too, unless you count like the keyboard piano patch as a piano. Over flugel, over acoustic bass even. Like it's uncontested as horns. It's uncontested. It's hard to say that tenor's above congas. It's hard. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because, again, guys, the keyboard can emulate the tenor saxophone if you really need it. So now you know that the keyboard is the absolute uncontested best instrument that has the most wins, the most OP. This is the Steve of 7.0, right? Super Smash Ultimate Steve. It does everything, beats everything. Basically, nothing has a winning matchup against it. It does literally everything every single instrument on the list can do. It's it's just like it's too much. It's too much. Instruments overpowered. But tenor saxophone just has the most application. It's the most popular saxophone, so it has the most has the most data, has the most replay data. Plus, with the play styles people had back then, if you're gonna kind of have the barrier entry to the tenor is that it's such an easy instrument that like you can pick it up kind of like you would pick up guitar. It's a much easier instrument to play. But if you decide to employ the same type of techniques that you put that you use with alto saxophone on tenor, now suddenly you're getting to Michael Brecker territory. Now you can do everything. Now you can cut everyone. Michael Brecker alto destroys the best alto players in 7.0. Just period. Like it just it's hard to say. And there's so many different versatile play styles. And it works well with a lot of different instruments. It works extremely well pairing sonically with guitar. So this instrument can also enter a support role on the front line. It's a really it's the best horn in the meta, period. Yeah, but here's the thing, Wesley. You say you never heard a keyboard emulation saxophone that didn't sound flawed. Keyboard cannot do any emulation of anything perfectly. But however, remember, like I said at the beginning of this video, the keyboard this meta is not about going back in time and being exactly perfect to the sound as possible. It's about, I wasn't in that time period, or we don't have the technology to emulate this, or it's too expensive to actually, sorry, not emulate, but we don't have the technology to get this exact instrument in the room. For example, like a pipe organ or a B3 or whatever. But we can, on the new hardware, we can get homebrew software and emulate the games on the new console. So you can actually emulate 6.0, 5.0, 4.0, and before, whatever instruments. You can emulate all those instruments in some way. It's not going to be the real thing. It's not going to be the tactiles. There might be some input lag, might be a bunch of stuff. But all people care about is, hey, man, I didn't grow up with Pokemon Red. I just want to play Pokemon Red. So they can pick up their phone, this digital synthesizer called a cell phone, and emulate the game on it. People they don't care. They don't care about it being authentic. The keyboard can even emulate drums. I mean, like if you're programming, right? Because again, the replays, you can, now this is the first era of Taz, right? You now have Taz speedrun replays. You can now do Taz's. Like keyboard is basically the way you make a Taz. So because you can do Taz, like you can program frame by frame every single input. You can input frame by frame every single input that you want to make a replay. So you don't have to play it in real time anymore. You can do things that were previously impossible to do on normal instruments. You can do them in real time now. So it doesn't matter if it's like authentic. It doesn't matter if it's human. Taz's are freaking legal now. So keyboard just destroys all of it. It's like, it's unfortunate, but yeah, guys. With the exception, of course, like this, because you know it's a guitar. You can just play slide guitar on guitar. This is my let's before I say it, let me check all the placements to see if I would change anything. Okay. I think that's fair. Sopranino over bass clarinet? No, that's bias. I can't do that. This thing has no freaking use case right now. Xylophone above valve trombone? I think I can't realistically do that. Vocals above viola? I don't think I can do that. I can't put U bass lower because it still has the same utility as a bass. It still has the same utility. Barry just doesn't have enough wins, and also the instrument again suffers from that sonic clashing. You have to kind of play around it. No, upright bass is exactly where it needs to be. I'd say if I'd put the synth lower. The modular synth is the thing. It keeps getting lower. It's harder. I feel like modular synth, man, like Flugel here. Mini Moog though, the thing is like again, the more you start paring these things down, the closer they become to being a keyboard. Especially when you consider that like the smaller of a synth you have, the less patches you have, less room for patches, the less sounds you can create, the less you can do with them, and then you're kind of getting into the territory of being outclassed by a keyboard at that point. So we're not talking about analog synths, we're talking about modular synths, right? So we have to like kind of compare. We have to kind of put them together, like modular plus analog have to kind of be here because again, like the keyboard can kind of do what they do without needing to, like without needing that. So yeah, Graham, I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly what Graham Jacobson said. So that's A tier. I think is okay. I think it's fine. Melodica above cello, I guess. Above pedal steel, I guess. It can't. It's still a keyboard, right? I'd do that. Yeah, this is fine. I think. I love crash cymbal too. What didgeridoo is you can do. I mean, like, yeah, you can have a career if you want. I mean, like, I guess the black and white picture in C tier is C melody. Frankie Trumbauer. Huh? Somebody call me. Oh. You might put alto lower. It's hard. I mean, I get. You know what? You actually are right, Jackie. I think I got to put alto lower than trumpet. But the thing, it's still a saxophone. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, lower than higher than drum machine. SPD. It's lower than Keytar for sure. Alto below upright. I don't know if I can agree with that. The EB still has too high of a barrier of entry. There's still tons of wins in like, first of all, we can't forget about Gary Bartz. We can't forget about the smooth jazz players that were basically fusion players, right? Like David Sanborn. David Sanborn carrying the alto on his back. Kenny Garrett also had notable wins. Right? There are a lot of incredible, I mean, Gerald Albright. I mean, like, these guys were carrying the instrument. Yeah, these guys were carrying the instrument. So it's kind of hard. I can't really put it below. And it's still a horn, so it doesn't have the same setup issues. So yeah, I think this is it, guys. So yeah, here it is. 7.0 tier list. 7.0 patches. Or no, 7.0 patch tier list. Yeah, that. Yeah, I'm definitely happy to do some post tier list discussion. If you guys oh yeah, look at that. Oh, before I sign off, yeah. Masato Honda. See, that's the thing. The global servers, the servers around the world have so much application. In Japan, alto is dominant over tenor. This is a Japan tier list. This would be switched like this. Be switched if this is Japan, but it's not. So that's where it is. Yeah, go ahead and post the if any mods can post a Discord link, that's where we can discuss. Get the conversation started, y'all. We want to discuss that. Let's have some stuff going on. Let's talk about this. Any questions, any comments, any complaints? Of course, probably a lot of complaints about this. Probably don't agree with what I put up here, which is fine. But so 2 days from now, on Saturday, we're going to be doing another tier list a little earlier in the day, actually. So that'll be cool. We're going to do another tier list. I'm probably going to do 2.0. I'm a lot more knowledgeable in 2.0 and 3.0 than I am in 7.0. So the energy will be a little more higher. It'll be a little higher. Probably be a little easier to focus on that one too. So yeah, 2.0 is going to be fun. 2.0 is going to be really fun. Because there's a lot of stuff with 2.0 that it's basically Smash 64. It's the Smash 64, like the first ever meta, right? It's the first ever meta. So I think a lot of people will learn a lot from that if we talk about that, and especially in gamer terms. A lot of people will learn some jazz history through that way. But yeah, go ahead and join the Discord. And if you want to consider supporting me on Patreon, I would appreciate that as well. If you haven't done so already, subscribe here on YouTube, like the video. This is going to be great. I made sure that this whole stream was ad-free. So because it's ad-free until when I put the video up, I'm going to put ads on it because it's going to turn into a video. But the stream has been ad-free. So I appreciate all donations. If you want to donate to me on PayPal, I just have to say so. That helps me to continue to do these lists. And it seems like, people really like that first one. So I'm going to keep doing this, until we have it. And I'm going to be on the lookout for like patch breakdown videos and stuff like that too. I'm going to kind of write that so that we can do that. But other than that, yeah, fun time. Another day, another tier list. I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for tuning in. And happy shedding. Get into the history. All right. Peace out, everybody. Thank you.